Hi, we are looking at day 2, and we are reviewing what we learned earlier in the year, and that is copying the angles in the space provided here. Now, the key thing that you need to make sure that you do anytime you're copying anything is that you at least start with a ray. Doesn't matter how long it is, but you need to have something that you can measure from and to. So the first thing that we need to do and remember is that when we are copying an angle, we need to copy how wide it is that's open. Well, depending on where it is that you use it, we're open different amounts of stuff. So I need to create this kind of guide that says, I'm going to measure this far out. And there is nothing special about that. Any length will do. The closer to you get, the more inaccurate you get. The farther you get, the more accurate you get. So have it be at least a little bit out there. So then we open up and we say, this is how wide my angle is. And we go over here and we make that arc. And that's it. That is all you need to do to copy the angle. So this angle, angle 1, has been copied. So same thing with an obtuse. There's really nothing special about it. So again, I just draw a ray of any length. It doesn't matter. So that way, when I measure how far out I'm going to go, I have a place to put that same exact arc. And again, the whole purpose of that was to figure out how wide it's open, but we need to make sure that we're measuring the same distance away. So it's open this amount, and it's open this amount. I'm going to make this arc here, which means this little dot right there is where they're intersecting, and that is angle 2. And it's copied. Let's go ahead and look at number 7. Constructing a parallel line. Well, you need to remember parallel line 1. You could create a rhombus. A rhombus would be parallel. You would have some parallel lines there. The other component is with parallel lines, we have angles. We have alternate interior angles and we have corresponding angles. And both of those require some sort of a transversal. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am just going to draw any old transversal. It does not matter where. Any angle is fine. And if I use what I learned up here in terms of copying an angle, I would say, well, this angle right here, and then this one up here would be the one that is corresponding to it. So then I would say, all right, I've made my 2 little arcs the same distance away. Open up that amount, and we've got that. So I open up this amount, make a little archy pool, and then this is going to be my parallel line. So what this is corresponding angles. So on the other one, I could do a alternate interior angles, which means I would basically copy here over to this side. Gets a little crazy on that, but the other thing I can do is I can draw a rhombus. So with a rhombus, I would say, well, let's see. Let's open up this amount. So this would be the length, the same length and the same length. And then I would just need to copy the same length and same length. 2 completely different approaches to doing this, but both of them are just fine in terms of creating our parallel lines. All right, let's look at 8. So it says use this segment as the length of the radius of a circle. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just put a dot so that I remember where my center is, because it's always a terrible thing when you lose the center. And then my little trick when I'm drawing a big circle is to actually move the paper. I move the paper all around, and I've got this nice looking circle. Now, if we were to make a sketch of what's supposed to be happening, I'm supposed to have a hexagon in here. The thing we need to remember about a hexagon is that these guys and these guys and these guys are all equal to each other. Well, I already know the length of these, and I'm going to go ahead and just draw one of my radii here. I can remember that. That's the length of my radius. And so if I open up my compass to that amount, from here over here, that distance will be one of the sides of my hexagon. That distance from here straight over this chord will be the distance. Keep going around. If I'm really lucky with my accuracy, I'll get, ooh, so close, almost perfect. So I must have been a tiny bit off when I did it. But again, I'm using what I know about a hexagon and what I know about a circle to problem solve and figure out how to draw a hexagon. So that would be my perfect and beautiful hexagon. So again, we have 60-degree central angles and equilateral triangles. Now, I want to create two similar equilateral triangles. So one of them, I would say easily, is this equilateral triangle there. And here's the deal. I've got this spot, and then I've got this spot, and I've got that spot. And I know that each of these are equal because each of these were comprised of 2 of my hexagon lengths as I went around. And so now I have my blue guy here, and then I have my red larger one, and I know they're similar, and all of my angles are all 60 degrees. Alright, so here is the backside. The backside is all practice of what we did on the first day. So, bisect an angle. If you remember, to bisect an angle, I need to create a rhombus. So these 2 lengths are equal to each other, and now those 2 lengths are equal to each other. So I've got this rhombus here, and the diagonal that I draw in ends up bisecting that angle. This one's quite a bit larger, and so again, I'm going to do the same thing. Now, here's a little bonus. Not only does a rhombus bisect the interior angles, so does a kite. So for this one here, I'm going to keep that length, and here I'm going to open it a bit wider and create some measures down here. So hopefully you can visualize what I've created, excuse me, on the outside. This is now a kite, and if you recall, the diagonal of a kite also cuts the angle in half. Could have done that same thing for this one as well. So 2 different ways of bisecting the angle. Rhombus, kite. You could have done them both rhombuses, you could have done them both kites. So let's go ahead and look at this one here. Again, from the first day. If this is the, to draw perpendicular, the only way I can do perpendiculars is to draw rhombuses or kites. And so what I want to do is, if this is the bottom of my rhombus, what I want to do is create the 2 sides. It does not matter how big those are. They just need to be the same length so you can create that part of your rhombus. And up here, if you think about it, a diagonal of a kite is perpendicular. So I could either keep the same length and have that be my rhombus, or just for sheer fun, I could make them longer and have it be my kite. And as you can see, both the rhombus and the kite create this nice perpendicular that I'm looking for. Same thing over here. So if this is going to be a perpendicular, the only way I can do that is a rhombus or a kite. So the first thing that I need to do is to make this in the middle of something. So we're going to go ahead and mark equal lengths on both sides. I just happen to have it to be the same length here. It doesn't really matter. Again, we just need to create equal lengths here. And so this is now the 2 sides of either your rhombus or your kite. It's much simpler to do a rhombus because the rhombus, now you don't have to open up this amount. You just need to open a little bit more than halfway. So I'm going to create the rhombus part up here and keeping it exactly the same, so I don't have to change it for a kite. The rhombus part down there. And I have now created a rhombus, and the only part of the rhombus I cared about was the perpendicular aspect of it. Almost done. Bisecting a line segment. This, again, you got to create a rhombus or a kite. So this is now the line segment, which is my vertical diagonal here. So the first thing that I need to do is say, well, on one of the sides, I need to have this length and this length. So this would be this part of my rhombus. And again, there is really nothing magical about this length that I've chosen, other than if it's too short, it just won't work. It won't be long enough. And so I have created this rhombus. Hopefully you can kind of visualize that. I don't want to write that in there because all I cared about was this. Now, this cuts it in half. Now, it also does it perpendicularly. That's just a byproduct. We can't really just do a bisecting without perpendicular because a rhombus does both. Our last one, we're going to do a 90-degree angle. Now, and anytime you're creating any sort of angle, the first thing you need to do is just create something to draw on. And so what I'm going to do is 90 degrees is intimate with the bisecting of the angle, bisecting of the line. And so I am going to just have this guy be my diagonal. Again, there was nothing special about it. That'd be my diagonal, my rhombus. We'll go ahead and mark the top part of the rhombus up here, the bottom part of the rhombus down there. And again, the only aspect that I really cared about was the 90-degree part. I just happened to also cut it in half. So this would be creating a 90 degree that I can then use in multiple other things.